on air. G'day, guys. G'day, Sunny Boy. G'day, Simon.
Good morning. How are we doing?
Not bad.
Week 4, lockdown, week 4 in the Big Brother Alps.
Unheard of. We're a week 2.5, I think.
Yeah, we're about 3. Maybe we're 3.5. Yeah, I think we're a bit ahead of you.
Boris is on the mend. Is that right?
Yes.
Boris is apparently he's out walking. Steady, Boris. Steady. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sick of the media. They make Boris and ICU. Last breaths.
Yeah.
Not
really.
What's a more credible
bullshit?
What's a more credible news source, Simon? BBC News or Daily Mail?
None of them.
The BBC,
I got a funny feeling.
The BBC by a country mile.
I've been browsing the Daily Mail, and it's just like an online tabloid. It's almost like a magazine.
It is. Yeah, I bought my friend of mine, good friend of mine, Terry, used to read the Daily Mail every day to get it work. So eventually I bought him a mug. It said. Reading the Daily Mail, like spending 30 minutes in a mental asylum. To me, that's the Daily Mail is really the most excuse from me learning trends, the most untrustworthy news source. You know, it's salaciousness.
So it's not even far left or centre or far right.
Oh no, it's right. No, it's far right. No, it's far right. God,
is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I wish we had a far right publication here in New Zealand. All our publications here, Simon, are far left. We've got
all of them. No.
All of them. Yes, the Herald, the News Hub, the whole lot of them. They're all leftists. Every single one of them.
Yeah.
We don't have a conservative paper.
That's interesting. Yeah. See, we have lots of because the Telegraph is not bad for news. It's if we used to call it the Daily Tory Graph, but
because Tory's a term for conservatism in England, isn't it?
Yeah.
For me to get our conservative news, I've got to read your newspapers, Simon, for us to get a conservative
view on the world.
New Zealand. New Zealand.
Well, I think most people just like fair and balanced.
That's all I want, but we don't have that here, Simon. We do not have in this country a fair and balanced. At least in your country, you can have left and right wing identifiable publications to get your balance if you want. We don't have that.
Unbelievable.
The right have been savaged.
Did you read about?
Good.
Have you got CNN, Simon? Do you follow CNN?
Not a huge amount. I have been watching quite a lot of the Trump the Trump news briefings.
Yeah. Oh, he's incredible. He's incredible. Yeah, I got to give a hand to Trump because people don't realize that America's 50 states, and so you got the federal and state level, and he's basically trying to govern 50 mini countries. So if the idiot Democrat left wings hadn't been so consumed with the impeachment process, which was about a $400 million waste of tax-paying money, maybe we would have got on the ball a little earlier instead of a witch hunt and saved more lives in America.
I want to interject and say that someone sent me a link of the American country over Europe, and I think we forget that America is bigger than all the countries in Europe. So when they talk about America surpassing the death rates or of Italy, we've got to take into account that Italy is only a fraction of the size of America.
Well, what you have in America is I think it's a 380 million. And New York is like London, which is a bit like possibly Paris. No, I think New York and London would be probably the big two main arteries of the whole world, the main hubs.
So you see, I can't conceive of that. I can't, Simon. We can't understand that. Oh, yep. I can't conceive of that, Carl, because what's the population of Hamilton? 200,000.
New York is about 8 million, and the greater New York area is about 15 million.
8 million people. That's just phenomenal.
Well, and the greater area is about 15. It's 5 boroughs. So
Wow.
Boroughs. Yeah.
And if people don't realise that New York, you can be on a train and in 45 minutes be in Philadelphia, or in a train in about an hour and a half you can be in Boston. It's a very densely populated area, that northeast part of
Conurbation,
America.
isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it's massive. I mean, you've
All the
got
way down the East Coast.
It's basically the new world in one place.
What's the population of London, Simon?
Oh, 8 million.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
big, yeah. There's a lot of people in there. A lot of people in London.
Oh man. Well, the interesting thing about
phenomenal.
CNN gave Jacinda Ardern they basically put her on this massive pedestal. They said New Zealand at the forefront of the coronavirus
I read that.
attack, meaning she is on the centre stage as being the leader of taking action. Because we've only had 4. We've only had 4 deaths.
Yeah, but guess what? Those 4 deaths have all been people in their 80s or 90s, Simon.
Yeah. Great news.
I mean, as sad as it is, one lady was mid-70s, 2 of them mid-80s, and one lady was in their 90s.
Yeah, it is sad.
Yeah,
but you've got to put that into proportion.
So
good morning, Sonia, and good morning, Kubrick lover.
I guess that'll be our daily our political vent. Just the main thing is, Simon, you're okay. Your extended family's okay. And do you know anybody in your realm or your musical circle that's been affected at all? Or
I don't know anybody in a musical circle that's been affected. I do know some people who've been affected. I have a salutary tale of how dangerous coronavirus is. One of my team, one of his sons got it at school in their last few days at school, right?
Wow.
Obviously. He then, before he knew he had it, so he didn't know he had it, he was at home and he had 2 friends round. This is like the last couple of days of school. So he then infected his 2 friends, right?
Oh, wow.
So they go back home. This is this is like when the lockdown is just started, so it's not really started and people are, So they take it home. They infect not only their father, but their grandfather. Their father ends up in intensive care, and their grandfather dies.
Shivers.
Now that is, I think,
close to home.
Pretty good example of, that it can affect anybody and how nasty it is. And how the wrong people get it. Me,
I can teach you a word. I'm not sure if you heard of this word. It's a buzzword in this country, but they're calling it cluster. You know what a cluster is? Cluster means like a group.
Yeah,
you do. Okay, so that's the buzzword in this country. Is they're trying to isolate the clusters.
Yeah. So they're doing this. They're basing themselves on the South Korea model. Which
is that right?
Well, South Korea have had like nothing compared to any of the rest of all the other countries. They've basically done massive targeted testing. So anywhere there's an outbreak, anybody gets it, they test all of them. They test all their immediate relatives. They work out where their connections are, test all their connections, test all the things. And what you see is that and they obviously get them to self-isolate and stuff like that. But basically, because they do it really fast and really, really targeted, but lots, massive amounts of testing. Their graph is nothing like the rest of the world's graphs.
Well, it seems to be fall into 3 categories. What New Zealand's done is I'm going to use the word isolate twice. So we've obviously isolated the problem and then isolated the citizens very quickly, which has been great. That's why we're number 1 in the world, I think, as far as what countries that have been westernized countries. But what she hasn't done is she's been super lax with the people coming into the country. They haven't been tested or quarantined, and that's why would you lock down people that have never travelled, but the people that have been exposed come in scot-free?
But they can't. You can't have many people coming back now because nobody's flying now, are they?
Oh, yeah. But some of the damage had been done in certain. There were certain wedding parties and stuff like that. And the third and final thing is the other countries have done really well worldwide, which you don't hear about. Is I guess they just smart or got the funding, but they've been testing very early. You know, once you can once you can test somebody, then you can isolate them.
Yeah,
completely. Well, indeed, and that's what they've done in South Korea. You know, is exactly that. They have done, as I say, massive amounts of testing and.
Because Andrew and I want to go back to work. We want to go back to work.
Yeah, well, sure, yeah. If I tell you that Korea's had 10,000 confirmed cases.
Oh wow!
You know, but only 214 deaths.
Oh wow! And possibly most of them would be above 65, 70 years of old.
Probably, yeah. You know, it's
so pre-existing conditions, elderly, asthmatics, heart disease, pre-ailments, homosexuals. No, they had a Florida. They had some Florida parties, and they couldn't realise why the 39-year-old who was extremely muscular just got it and fell to the floor.
Well, because there's other things. Yeah,
I'm not putting that in the gay community. I'm just saying it seems to affect them as well.
They tend to have more sexually transmitted diseases, and therefore they take more antibiotics, which is why their immune systems are not as strong. Which is why one of the reasons why the HIV is so prevalent in the gay community because of that. Because HIV is another immune deficiency.
Yes.
Virus. So therefore, if you take a lot of antibiotics, that destroys your immune system.
Because you can be negative or positive.
Yeah. But and that's one of the reasons why. So a proper scientific reason why. So keep your immune system up. Keep taking your probiotics, guys.
And it was quite sad because the African American community thought they were immune to this because initially it was mainly Asians and whites that were getting affected.
Yeah.
But now it's turning out they're 50% of the cases in America.
Well, and again, it's because if you look at the Maori people here in this country, they tend to live communally. So it's like the Indian community here too. There's 3 or 4 families or 3 or 4 generations of people living together. So that's the difficulty. If you're Anglo-Saxon and just living with your own family, well, that's okay. But if you've got 4 generations, and I know people, through business that living with 2 uncles, an auntie, and their grandparents, and they're Indians, and that's just what they do.
Oh, it's 3 generational. But they're actually, I've met quite a few of them lately, and I'm amazed
through work,
through their level of health. Guys in their 70s, 80s who look like in their 50s.
Oh, mate.
The virus would generally stay away from them because of their turmeric, garlic, onion, and their curry.
The diet.
So, big time.
I'd be careful with that.
Because what happens is, as fast as it goes in with their diet, as fast as it goes out. That's although they're also lean, skinny.
Hey, shall we? Shall we
talk music?
Yeah. I always appreciate the fact that we've given each other a bit of a rundown, and that's one of the great things about social media is that we're connecting with friends and finding out what's that.
Have you seen this picture? Do you know who it is? If you don't,
Chuck Berry.
No, none of those people is Chuck Berry.
John Lennon. John Lennon in the middle.
It is John Lennon in the middle.
Paul McCartney
on the left.
And George Harrison.
George Harrison on the right. Yes.
Oh, he looks like he's been.
My gosh.
It's about 1958. This photograph.
Wow.
Look at that.
Is that a new photo? I haven't seen that photo, Simon, and I'm pretty familiar with.
I know, yeah. I thought, I
rare.
saw it yesterday. I thought, I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna see if Andrew's seen it because he thinks
So
pretty cool.
So is that recently discovered?
I presume so. Yeah. Where did I see it? I saw it on Twitter.
Oh wow!
It was a bloke. Who's the guy who's writing the 3 volumes history of
Lewisham.
Lewisham. I think it's one of his photographs.
Oh,
I think it's one of his. Yeah,
because he's working on part 2 of his 3-part biography.
Magnum opus, isn't it?
Yeah.
Due out in 2035 or something. Just incredible.
I've been seeing some amazing, incredible, obscure. Forget about the Rolling Stones because there's hundreds of thousands of them, but just you mentioned Beatles and some obscure Eric Clapton ones on these Cream tours and Blind Faith tours and Delaney and Bonnie tours, and just it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
the Gibsons he's playing. He's still hanging on to those Gibson Les Pauls for dear life till about 1970-71. So.
Well, we've discussed this before, that music from the Big Pink had a big effect on him. And again, I suppose we have to echo the revelation that we had a couple of shows ago, that the equipment, the guitar, probably has more of a impact on these guys as artists and musicians than probably what we think. You know, did the Marshall Blues Breaker make Eric Clapton, or did Eric Clapton make the Marshall Blues Breaker? There's an argument for both
Marshall
views.
made it for him.
Yeah, the argument is quashed by just right place, right time.
A sign
of the time, sign of the era. It just happened, you know.
But
I'm pretty sure he would have made a Fender amp sound really good. It would have probably just taken a year or two for that sound to be discovered.
Oh yeah, that's the point I want to make. So he completely reversed his view from playing Gibsons and Marshalls to playing Fender amps and Fender guitars. It was just something that he consciously wanted to absorb in himself as a player.
Yeah. One thing, guys. Last week you were talking about when you guys were on. You were talking about the Clapton stuff and the equipment and stuff, and I just went away and just had a quick look. The JTM 45 was a 212 speaker amp.
212 amp.
Yeah, and the Fender Bass was a 410. So
410.
Yeah. But the interesting part that I think the 58 to 60 Les Paul, one of their characteristics, and I went away and checked this out because I remembered it, but is that it has the sound of it. It doesn't have that dark kind of, Gibson-y sound that you associate with a Les Paul. It actually has quite a bright sound that sounds more like a telly. It actually sounds more like a Telecaster. And especially the wiring means that if you roll the volume off on those, you don't lose so much of the high end. It keeps its high end. It's a kind of peculiarity of those guitars that make them different to the kind of Gibsons that you buy now, which, as I say, tend to have quite dark. I mean, I never really liked a Gibson sound that much because it's always been dark and muddy. And I don't like dark and muddy. Carl, we can't hear you, mate.
I saw a video on YouTube a couple of days ago, and they were echoing, Simon, what you were saying about these 58 Les Pauls. There's a brittleness to the neck, which sent me on a bit of a tangent. So the wood that they were using back in the late 1950s in the Gibson plants were quite dry. So what I'm doing with my Les Paul now, especially because it's quite soft, the nitros on here, it's very soft. I've sanded the back of the neck, but I'm sunbathing this guitar. I've been sunbathing it for a week.
Really?
So the idea is you put it in the sun for 6 to 8 hours, and after about a year, that's going to be able to have an effect. But what's interesting is that when I put this out in the sun, you can see condensation coming through. It's amazing.
The water coming out. You can actually see it's drying out.
There's just there's like just a little bit of condensation. So
so Les Paul standard, is it?
Yeah, traditional. But the point though that sorry, Carl, that Simon's making is that the wood that they were using in the late 1950s was a much drier wood.
And therefore, the dry wood, and then so it's less dense because obviously you've squeezed the water out of it, and therefore you get a different, that different kind of, So we have to. Wait.
What I learned yesterday, which I don't know, but in order to have an authentic Les Paul sound, you got to source the correct PAF pickups. Is that right?
Yeah, patent to apply for. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have
for pickups?
Are they on your guitar, Andrew, or are you going to get yours later?
These are burst buckers, but look at
they were only patent to apply for in the late 50s before they had a patent.
Yeah, you can get 50 different types of 150 pickups. That you can get some high gain ones, some low gain ones, depending on the type of music that you want to play. Obviously, I'm playing British blues and rock and roll, so I just got the traditional, which has got the burst buckers, which is as close as you can get without forking out the big, huge money for a PAF.
So you own a Les Paul American one, Andrew?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I haven't done a show yet on it, but I keep promising that people that I'll be doing a show on it.
Was that special ordered into the country, or was that on the? I was just on the in the store.
Yeah. So there's a reason why I got it for 2019 is because most of the famous ones were 1959. So mine's 60 years older. So 2019.
Yeah. Whereas I don't have a Les Paul, but my Gold Chapman has a set of 59 PAF style humbuckers in it.
Yeah.
So it's got Seymour Duncan SH1 blues pickups, which are not very high output, and they are surprisingly, and I really like it because it has this kind of, it's bright and sparkly, and it does. I can make it sound like a telly, quite nice. Because I was playing it before I sort of remembered this. I was mucking about a couple of weeks ago, and I was thinking to myself, do you know the telly sounds like that? Why do they sound so similar? Now I know, duh. To figure that out. But so I very much got those kind of low output PIF style pickups because they are brighter and they are, they have a sort of definition to them that I really like. But I think it's really important to say that in terms of Clapton sound, that he he had this, and he and it didn't give so much. It wasn't so far away, interestingly, from the telly that he'd used before. Probably just a bit more.
Yeah. Well, because I was
having breakfast.
I was watching this guy do a Eric Clapton kind of how to sound like Eric, and he put the pickup is on the one down the bottom.
Sure.
The bright sounding pickup. That's how he gets his lead sound. So everything's bright, quite bright.
Yeah.
And he said that there wasn't much effects going on. It was just loud, and it was all in the fingers.
Yeah, turn it up and hit it. Yeah.
And apparently, some people are saying that he had this Rangemaster treble boost, but no one can confirm that. There were discussions that people saw it in the studio, but Clapton himself can't even answer.
He can't remember. He doesn't think so, does he?
No, he's 90% sure that he just went straight into the amp. So let's take him at his word.
And so playing this Les Paul, Andrew, obviously you've been playing Strats and Tellys and casinos and all sorts for the last 2, 4, 5, 6 years. But do you have a newfound respect for Gibson or Les Paul, or is it just totally different, or is it just a pleasant surprise? Or is it your favourite guitar, or what?
Thank you for asking that question. I have to tell you that it is a it's unique. It's absolutely unique to itself. Stratocaster and Telecaster sitting on your body when you're standing up playing, they're pretty similar on how they feel.
Yep.
A Casino's quite a light guitar. My ES355 copy, pretty light guitar. But I have to tell you, playing a Les Paul certainly gives you a different appreciation, especially when you consider most of my guitars have slim necks. This has got a 59 neck, and it's like a cricket bat.
It's quite heavy. I got to say, I mean, I like them all, but I got to say, just from memory, I think that overall the Gibson necks are better than the Fender necks.
Oh, mate, can I tell you something? The best way I can describe it, you hear people say,
I'm just talking about the neck.
I have to fight with something. So, like, if I play any of my EVH guitars, I've got quite a slim neck. My Strats have my Clapton Strat has a thin V groove, but the Les Paul, it's a chunky neck. You've got to, when you're doing an E pentatonic down at the 12th position, Simon, you're having to, you're thinking about where you're putting your fingers.
I tell you what, the Gibson necks from memory. We'll close out with this because we've got to get one for the show. But it's like a knife through butter. Just the mid-tones you get. You don't have that beautiful luxury, unfortunately. I mean, some guys can get it like Mick Taylor's and that, but you can't get that quite nice, bright, tangy pitch harmonic. I mean, Billy Gibbons could get it, but the Gibson necks are just beautiful for lead playing, jazzy sounds.
Well, I have to tell you another thing too that's phenomenally different with my Les Paul. The tone control is amazing. I've had Les Paul copies in the past, and when you've fiddled around with the tone, it's made it quite muddy. When you use the tone on a Les Paul, it's not muddy, Simon and Carl. It's remarkable.
Yeah.
It's
beautiful. What about when you roll the volume off, Andrew? Does it still
it's phenomenal.
Tops? Yeah.
It's fun. So when you're about 7 or 8, it's very clear, very nice. But when you whack it on to 10, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Does it? Do you think that? What I was going to ask you. God, what was I going to bloody ask? But you changed the. Did you change the pickups on it for burst buckets,
no.
or did they have it in there when it came? So they're the standard pickups.
Yes.
Yeah, Hack likes those as well, doesn't he? Yeah, he likes them too.
Yeah, no, I've done nothing to it, and in all fairness, I probably won't. I'll keep that standard.
No. Yeah. If they don't mess about with it, if it's not broken. Yeah.
No.
I mean, I must say, I've obviously had my Strat for 30 years, and so but it's got quite a small neck. I don't have very big hands, so it's really good for me. My Chapman's got a much bigger neck, much more I consider to be a much more kind of Les Paul-y type neck, which is fine. I don't have any issues playing it, and I don't think of myself as going. I'm not one of those people. I've discovered that what I'm not is one of those people got to have this type of neck and got to have that. I can play any guitar. You give me a guitar, I can play it.
Yeah.
I don't care whether it's got my other Chapman has got much more of what I think is like an Ibanez neck, so it's got much flatter and kind of thing. Play that, it's fine. It's really good to play. Really nice neck to play. My ML2 Classic is a really nice neck to play. It's just different. My Strat is my Strat, and that plays beautifully. And so does my Telly, which has got a bigger neck on it too. So I don't feel, I'm not one of those people who kind of, I can only play one neck and I can, just pick one up and play it. Because it seems to be.
And the frets don't bother me either too, Simon, whether it's thin frets or the jumbo frets.
Got to get used to it, but
I've had a couple of guitars here with those thin little stainless. If anything, I don't like the thin stainless frets, if anything.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Oh, my Strat's got vintage frets. Not much of them, to be honest, anymore. But I'll go out and see if I might do a refret on it, possibly. But just before we start, Mr. Morrison, I just want to say, guys, that I don't know if I picked this up from the Johnny Bean show, which is what happens because last time, you were talking about Eddie Van Halen playing. Eddie Van Halen did play a Les Paul on the Women and Children First tour. He played a Les Paul without the neck pickup. Typical of Van Halen. Took it out. I thought, that. Don't need that. Yeah, so he did for a tour. He played a Les Paul. That in between phase. Yeah. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah. So when I was making that comment, Simon, about him deliberately not playing a Les Paul early on, that was certainly one of the things that he said that he didn't want to be associated with Jimmy
Hendrix.
Jimmy Page. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He liked him.
Oh yeah. But what you have to remember too is that these guys are competitive, and
yeah. Oh, of course.
And it's all about
same with Dimebag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get and probably Billy Gibbons. Let's get a radically different shaped guitar and make that my hot rod, my my personalized custom mobile.
Yeah.
Well, Keith did it with the black telly with the humbucker. That was never heard of ever.
No. Oh, it's interesting.
Yeah. No, good. All right. Hey, so I'm not sure if you've known, Simon, we've done a 5-part series, and we're on the third part, and we've made this. Andrew and I.
Just wait there for a second, mate. I just want to ask you a question. I've just it's just dawned on me. Hold on.
An epiphany. Okay.
So Keith Richards is the first guy. Where's my camera? To put a humbucker in a telly.
I don't know, but I just know it's different. Maybe he was.
I think you're right.
I don't know. Did he put? I don't know.
Well, that became a signature sound. He wanted that bump, but he wanted the twang. Because Hockey Tonk Woman and maybe we are right.
Okay, all right. Sorry to interrupt you. I didn't think of it that way because I know that they had those customs, didn't they, in the 1970s? Fender bought them the tellies with the humbuckers as their competition against the Les Pauls.
Do you know when he did it, Andrew? Do you know when he did it?
Well, it would have been early 1970s, Simon. Got to be.
Yeah, because Terry Reid had a humbucker in his telly in the late 60s, 68.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so well.
He probably not, but close. Maybe got it from Terry Reid because it was obviously quite a smaller.
Okay.
You might have seen it or played it.
Yeah. I'm not saying Terry Reid was the first person either, by the way.
Who's Terry Reid?
Terry Reid. Terry Reid was going to be the original singer in Led Zeppelin. Jimmy Page was gonna get Terry Reid to do it. Terry Reid's a kind of singer and guitarist,
but he was already touring, wasn't he?
But he was already touring. He already had an album, and he said no. He said, "But I know somebody who might." Robert Plant. The rest is history.
And apparently he's on record by saying that's probably one of the worst decisions he ever made.
So now he plays cover music in a cover band with Stu Sutcliffe, Pete Best, and who else?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you who owns his guitar, his '68 telly now.
Keith Richards.
Terry Reid. No, Joe Bonamassa.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. I should have put that as a competition, shouldn't I? Who owns Terry Reid's '68 telly? The answer is he takes it and plays it. Hats off to him. That's kind of thing. But yes, I listened with interest to your show last week. One of the things I picked up on was the thing about keyboards and stuff. In the 50s, and just a bit of background. Sorry, I'm just tangentializing as usual. Just a bit of background. basically in the UK in the 50s, certainly 40s, 50s, maybe probably earlier, every pub had a piano,
Sure.
right? And every pub had a piano or several piano players. So people would learn, the songs of the day, and then they would be in the pub and they'd go to the pub, have a few beers, and have a sing song. That was the entertainment. Certainly, all around the country. So learning the piano, and it was a kind of, especially working class, was very much you could have an upright piano in your front room, the posh room in the house, your front room, and therefore, and your kids, you sent your kids to learn the piano.
Sure.
So there's a lot, and then obviously, things like in the 50s, the guys we're talking about, they, one cannot overestimate the influence of Jerry Lee Lewis and Little Richard. Those guys, and all that. I think also Boogie Woogie as well, but stuff like that, But certainly those guys got into it, playing those things, and then obviously Jimmy Smith as well, the American, Hammond player,
organ player, yeah.
Yeah,
the Blue Note sound, yeah.
Yeah, but kind of, there was I think, there was a driver, a history, that they could tap into for, for rock and roll, particularly.
Yep.
That they could tap into as a youth movement, so that playing the piano, playing the keyboards wasn't necessarily, not necessarily seen as very square. As learning the clarinet probably was. Or, the flute. Let's start on the flute players. Ian Anderson, I'm looking at you.
No, you're right. You're right.
So I think you can't underestimate that kind of, that kind of cultural, the background to it. Where, as I say, every especially working class, every home had a piano of some description.
Yeah. Even the band we're going to talk about today, Them, which is part 3 of the 5-part series, had a keyboard player. So, which with you can hear it on these songs, "Here Comes the Night" and that sort of thing. How important it was. I mean, Animals was huge. Zombies, obviously, all those songs, the big songs, all what anchored the music down and the melodies and what drove and gave the driving sound was either the keyboard melody of some sort. But when you mentioned Simon about, we won't include him in the series, but I remember listening to him as a kid and I thought he was great. Georgie Fame, remember him?
Yeah, Georgie Fame, the Blue Flames. Yes, absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
The Ballad of Bonnie and Clyde,
And it, a similar thing that, right, okay, name all the Beatles groups name all the Liverpudlian groups with keyboard players. Odd, isn't it? But see, Paul McCartney could play the piano, remember? He could play the piano. But interestingly, sorry, I'm singling Liverpool out in a funny way. But George Martin. Yeah, but he's not from Liverpool. He's from London.
Oh, okay, that's right. He's
George Martin is a working class. George Martin is a working class guy from London, which has that that kind of Cockney knees up, Jazz and Dave, completely that tradition of a piano in every London pub sort of thing.
Yeah, makes sense.
So and his
Keith Richards, a lot of those guys would compose their songs on the piano first, and then relay the piano chords to the guitar.
Amazing.
And that's when Keith Richards found out the keys to Chuck Berry's songs. He was like, Chuck ain't playing these in A, B, or D. He's playing them in piano keys, which C and B flat or F.
B flat and F,
Which is so they came to the realization, which is the unsung hero of Chuck Berry and rock and roll, is Johnny Johnson. Once again, keyboards. So Van would have known all this. I mean, these guys, as young as they were pretty sharp, I think.
So Chuck was playing in C and B flat because it just sounded better to his ears. That was the reason why.
No, because he copied Johnny Johnson's piano lines.
Oh,
because he copied all those Chuck Berry, loads of those Chuck Berry things are piano lines played on a guitar.
No one talks about Johnny Johnson, but that's Chuck Berry's guy. That's basically the
he played with.
That's how he got the sound.
Oh, okay.
So
that second riff that we learned to play as guitar players was a piano riff.
And Johnny Johnson was listening to this guy called Albert Ammons and Fats Waller. And
Albert Ammons, Pete Johnson, and Albert Ammons, great boogie woogie players. Yeah,
Pete Johnson, and
that all came from. Don't forget, you got to jump on and do a show with Simon and I,
which a lot of people don't realise came from Louisiana. Which obviously
have a nice Easter, Sonia.
You too, yeah, Louisiana, which was as we know, jazz, which had a French Cajun sort of influence. So it's all intermeshed, you know. So and that French sound would have been a little bit influenced by, we mentioned, but the piano in the pub in England. Because
and the accordion, of course, which is very French. We think of as a very French instrument, but of course, Cajun, the Louisianan Cajun music, has accordion in it. All about it. Probably, Carl, you can tell me. I think kind of uniquely in the States. I think that Cajun is the only.
It's huge in Mexico. The accordion. It's called Tejano music, and it's actually quite dreadful. But they love it. But what people don't know is because it all sounds the same to me, but to them it's like country and western music, but their main sound is the accordion. But people don't realise,
or the western.
But people don't realise that the accordion it was a German influence.
German,
German influence.
Germany's not renowned for its great rock and roll history, is it?
No, but it's amazing, because there was a beer called Dos Equis, which means 2 X's, which is a famous beer, as famous as Corona. But if you read the back of the beer label, it said that the Germans came over in the early 19th century, 18th century, and and brought the lager into the breweries.
And we also have the Germans to thank for the harmonica too, because that was a German
Hohner?
Yeah.
Wow. And Steinbeck.
Steinbeck. Or John Steinbeck.
No, what's that famous piano? Steinway.
Yeah.
Mice and Men.
Buchner. Yeah, of Mice and Men. That well known.
Best laid plan, Simon, is you and.
American German piano maker and writer John Steinway,
whose mother was Mexican and he was going to be called Juan. But,
true. Yes, the Scorpions. After that, we're all struggling.
I think they'll just stick to the BMWs and Mercedes. I think.
Yeah. Stick to what you can do best. Cars. Teutonic efficiency.
But I'm glad we're talking about Van Morrison, because we've talked about Liverpool, we've talked about London, Animals obviously last week. It's a shame you missed that show, Simon. But obviously they were from
that's right.
Newcastle. So each town is getting represented in a certain way, because obviously we can talk about the Stones and Beatles and Eric Clapton till we're blue in the face, but it's very London-y based. I want to put a spotlight on some of these other towns and counties and parts of the British Isles.
Yeah. Interestingly, I mean, obviously, I think one of these, but that I discovered about the Animals was that obviously, their manager, their first was Alan Jeffries, the man who went on to manage Jimi Hendrix. And rip off Jimi Hendrix massively. Having ripped off the Animals massively, he then ripped off Jimi Hendrix massively as well.
And he died in 1973. Died in 1973 in a plane crash, didn't he, or something?
Run away with all the money. Kind of thing.
Yeah, no good.
Be careful, my learned friends will be after me. But I mean, that was interesting. That.
They're all connected some way. Chaz Chandler's, and that's why I want to talk about these guys. So Van Morrison. The same thing that was happening in London was the same thing happening in Belfast. Young guys exposed to all this great music. Obviously, Van discovered his Celtic roots later on with some amazing albums, but at that particular stage is all about blues, blues and R&B.
Yeah, no, he was very, very, very much early on a blues man, very, very, very clearly.
Well, because his father had a massive record collection, didn't he, Van Morrison? His father had a huge record collection because no, he did, and that's where he got it from. His father's record collection exposed him to Muddy Waters, Mahalia Jackson, Charlie Parker, you name Woody Guthrie, Jimmy Rogers, blah blah blah. Yeah, and Sonny Terry and Brandon. But also, so because his father had this massive record collection, bought by the sailors coming across the Atlantic, the Cunard line of sailors coming across the Atlantic, and then selling them in the port. That's Liverpool. All the ports, you'll notice. Yes, they're all ports. Not Birmingham, but Newcastle,
certain towns in certain countries
Manchester,
where 45s, they had a huge 45 collections, and I think it was Christchurch and Dunedin had a huge 45 base, and obviously that would have been Belfast too, right?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Belfast's massive with shipbuilding. What they called they built the Titanic.
Wow.
God, their bloody names. Stupid idiot. And also, I think that can't underestimate that his, apparently his father had one of the largest record collections in Northern Ireland at one point.
Wow.
Because he lived in Detroit in Michigan in the early 50s.
So what John Mayall was to Eric, Mr. Morrison was to his son Van.
Was to Van, yeah.
Wow.
George Ivan Morrison.
That does help. I mean, Andrew's talked about this. I've talked about this. Having family members or brothers or uncles or cousins with great record collections, it helps a lot.
Well,
I think that's right.
It gets you to the source quicker.
Well, back in our day,
because his father had the source, didn't he?
We didn't have Spotify or anything like that, So a record collection, remember when you used to go to someone's house, Simon? It was you'd have a look at their record collection, you have a look and see what books are on their bookcase.
20 records.
It was the books, and then later on it was what kind of what drugs have you got?
Speak for yourself,
okay.
Honestly. The rest
Playboy, sorry, that was soft.
Playboys. Okay. It was Playboy. Okay.
Playboy. Yeah, completely. But also that, and I've said this on here before, that thing about back in the early 70s, when I started, nobody knew what bands looked like. The only thing you had to go on a band is you might get a blurry shot of them in the NME or the Melody Maker or their record covers.
Right.
And you had to choose records on the back of their record covers, and maybe who they went on tour with, who they, yeah.
Well, there's actually quite a few nuggets presented. If you're a cute businessman, or as we know, the Jewish had a lot involved with. So if you look at the songwriting credits and then the publishing rights and BMI and CBS and all these little codes on the back of these records, it's incredible. So a record cover was a source of information. Not only the like you said, the look of the band, but who wrote the songs, where it was recorded.
Yes.
A little blurb, describing the band or where they've been on tour.
Yeah.
It was all marketing. It was all marketing.
Well, not only was it all marketing, it was all because you had an album sleeve. That's what you read. You read the engineer's name. You read the,
absolutely.
You read the producer's name. You read all the other musicians' names. Who are all these other people? And you're right. If they played with them, who else have they played with and stuff like that?
I remember the Rolling Stones' first album. I was just in brackets. Who the hell's Holland and Dozier? And they were the songwriting team.
Holland, yeah.
They were the songwriting team for Motown. And who the hell's the pseudonym Nanka Felge? And that was the Rolling Stones. I think I think it was a tax write-off, or they did it. Probably the accountant recommended it. Or who the hell's Slim Harpo had who's Elias McDaniels, which is Bo Diddley, you know. And
Bo Diddley, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought that was a Muddy Waters song. Oh, who's this? What, W. Dixon? Oh, no, he's the guy that wrote all the chess songs. Muddy Waters, you know, so it was just great.
McKinley Morganfield, yeah.
Yeah, but he didn't get the credits. It was, you know, there's all Dixon. A lot of that was Dixon.
Willie Dixon, yeah.
So I'm just looking at the Them's first album. Mystic Eyes, as we know, is a phenomenal song, one of the top songs of all time. Just a Little Bit was a Buster Brown, he was an R&B guy, black guy. Gloria, Don't Look Back, John Lee Hooker. Bright Lights, Big City. Get Your Kicks on Route 66. So that tells me, what year was this? Obviously, they were on the same. When we came to the conclusion last week, Andrew and myself, with Decca, the Decca label signed up a whole bunch of people, Zombies, everybody. So 11th of June 1965 was released. So they were obviously following the Rolling Stones a little bit too, you know.
Yeah, but prior to that, what's interesting about Van Morrison, that he'd gone down the German route.
Okay.
You know, that he actually played in the late 50s. He played in show bands, and he went to Germany. You see, he went to Germany like the Beatles did, and he played in the clubs, and he said, he's likened it to
Hamburg,
yeah, all of those, and he basically likened it to Frankfurt, Heidelberg, Cologne, in all this, these places he just went and played, and he said it was like a boot camp, it's like a learning camp, like the 10,000 hours, the Malcolm Gladwell thing, 10,000 hours, that's
a bit like a kibbutz, a bit like a kibbutz.
Well,
the angry
with wheels,
the angry young them. Look how angry they are.
There they are.
So I've got them on the cover there, and
pull it back.
Doesn't that look like the Rolling Stones? They're all looking very similar, aren't they? Very, very nice, very tidy with these jackets.
The sound is gone.
No, you're right. I can still hear you.
Yeah.
Andrew.
Okay. But yeah. Are you there, Carl?
Can you still hear us, Carl?
Can you hear us? Yeah, we can hear you.
I can't hear Andrew. Don't know what's happening.
Okay. All right. That's okay.
I'll come back in, eh?
Yeah. Well,
I'll come back in.
You're leading the show, so.
Here we go.
You're right.
You're back now.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I see. I thought it was a bit of a glitch.
It was just a glitch there.
Do you want to give us a rundown on the people who made up Them and anything that they did after Them? We all know how famous Van Morrison became. Do you guys know anything about the other members of the band? Because I know absolutely jack crap about the rest of the band.
Peter Barden's on keyboards.
Okay, so we know that he went on to be important as far as Peter Green, because they gigged together.
Rod Stewart and Van Morrison, Fleetwood Mac, Mick Fleetwood. That's probably about it, really. So he was an English Westminster London boy that went up to Belfast and joined Van Morrison. Wow. It doesn't really show any credits about the other guys, so I think Van was the man. That Van was basically it.
I think they were just local musicians, weren't they? And the rest of the guys, and they were just people in Belfast who played.
It was quite interesting because the album came out quite strong. The second album not so strong, but I think Van was more known for those three massive songs, which were obviously Mystic Eyes, Here Comes the Night, and we can't forget about Gloria. How many times have you been drunk at a party? Someone's tried to sing it and everybody sings along.
It's a fantastic song.
Yeah.
The Doors version is just as good.
We used to do the
Doors
version. The Doors version.
Okay.
I'll tell you, we used to do the Eddie and the Hot Rods version. Do you know Eddie and the Hot Rods version?
No.
Eddie, you should look it up. Live at the Marquee. It's worth a shot. Eddie and the Hot Rods were basically a sort of R&B band from the 70s. They were in love with Dr. Feelgood and all of that. But they had a hit with Do Anything You Want to Do with them. But they did a Live at the Marquee EP that had Woolly Bully on it, and it had the A side was Gloria, but it had Gloria. It went Gloria into Satisfaction in the middle, and then back to Gloria.
Awesome.
So it's really good. It's worth it. It's really good, really good. They were great. I saw them. They were a great band.
So Gloria was quite a quite of a bluesy, simple bass line, eh? Dun, 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 dun. And then it's kind of a fever, then a fever pitch.
ED8. It's the old Eddie Cochran, Buddy Holly trick, isn't it?
Wow. Here's a fun fact. So when I used to collect records, the first Them album on the Decca label, unboxed, just went for hundreds of pounds. Just ridiculous.
Really?
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds. Like I would see mint copies go for £400, £500, £600, which £1,500 New Zealand dollars.
Really?
So what you had, unbelievable. Well, because they didn't sell a large amount.
Oh, so it's supply and demand. Okay.
Yeah. So once they realised, see, they would have sold. That's why I mentioned before the singles were huge. Them, unfortunately, is more known as a singles band. You know, there's massive songs. Mystic Eyes, Here Comes the Night, and Gloria. And then people 20, 30, 40 years cotton on to the fact, A, they're playing through valve amps. The recording's really primal. It's really good. It's warm. Decca Studios, blah, blah, blah. This is, you know, and let's forget about these singles. Let's focus on the other songs, which they probably sound really good, which they do. Then, yes, supply and demand. But the good thing about America is because in America they got the albums a bit later and they changed the cover. The sound wasn't quite as good, but you could buy the American version for $50 or $60. But what actually happened was with the American version, they advertised them with their hit song Here Comes the Night, and then Gloria came out. They had to change the cover because Gloria was bigger than Here Comes the Night. So 6 months later, they put a sticker on the album cover, including their smash Gloria. You know,
really?
Yeah. So that kind of not necessarily dropped the ball, but they had to capitalize on the fact that the second song was bigger than the first song. Because let's face it, Here Comes the Night's a great song, and he does that little staccato little thing, da, 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 you know. But Gloria was the anthem, obviously, you know. You can imagine all those campuses all around the world, even people from Germany and Japan, Japanese, you know, singing in Japanese language. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a beer drinking song, isn't it?
What's interesting about that is that even when they played, you know, when they first started playing it at the Maritime Hotel, it would be it could be a 20-minute version. You know,
oh wow! Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it could be really long with ad-libbing over the top. Yeah,
because that bass line is very jazzy and staccato. They break it down where they the bass line just carries on forever, doesn't it? So then you get some drunk people in the audience to come on stage, and some guy's got some maracas in his pocket. It just goes on and on and on.
Is that the guy from Dixie, just pleased to see me.
It's a 20-minute jam.
Well, yeah, that's what it was. I mean, the Maritime Hotel in Belfast, where they sort of cut their teeth, was you know, it would turn into the sort of 20-minute, you know, thing could go on for a long time.
I flip and feel sorry for the bass player with sore hands after the 20 minute. When are we going to flip and finish this song? I've been carrying the hook the whole time.
But I think that one of the interesting parts is that improvisation bit, that ad-libbing stuff. Obviously, you know, then when he went off and did stuff on his own, that came back into the fore, you know, and it doing Astral Weeks and all of that. You know.
I've got to say, Van Morrison is a freak of a musical talent. How he can go from acoustic jazz to rock to Celtic songs to R&B to blues to pop songs, dare I say it.
So what did you guys think of his performance in The Last Waltz? Got any opinions on that?
I don't think I've ever seen the whole Last Waltz.
Don't think of it.
I remember he came to Austin, Texas. We have a famous music.
Have you seen him?
No, I missed the show. But there's a famous musical festival, and like a little bit like Glastonbury, where it starts out in a tent and then slowly every year gets bigger and bigger. Austin City Limits. They call it ACL.
Yeah.
And it just when I saw it, it was like 5 stages, all strategically placed in different parts, all scientifically based, so that noise wouldn't bounce off each other. So you could have two bands go at the same time without noise interference. It was incredible how they did it. But Van Morrison came one year, but he did a bit of a Neil Young, Bob Dylan. Didn't play any of his hits. This was the year that he did a country and western album.
Oh, really?
And
so he rolls
up
with a cowboy hat on and cowboy boots, and he's and an Ovation guitar.
So I was talking to a guy at a gas station. I said, "Oh, how was the show?" Van was there. He goes, "Oh, obviously, like most people, like Bob Dylan or Neil Young fans, want to hear the hits." Oh, it was all right. But, played the country and western songs.
Caravan. Yeah. Are you saying, Carl, that even then Van Morrison was a country old bastard? Do you know what?
I'm just saying how he could interweave between all these musical styles. He is probably top 10 musical people of all time, I think.
Yeah.
I will say too, he had something very similar to the Rolling Stones from 68 to 72. He had that magic period. Magic. Absolutely unbelievable.
Like a lot of people, he has 3 album magic periods, doesn't he?
Yeah, I'll talk about it right now. So, Astral Weeks, Moondance, Tupelo Honey, St. Dominic's Preview, all 4 albums, 68 to 72, which were all...
on a run.
But that's the word, so 4 on a run,
Yeah. I've seen him quite a few times. He in the early 80s. He did a run of concerts at the Dominion Theatre in London, which is in Tottenham Court Road. So I have an Irish friend of mine, Patrick, who's from Belfast, and he said, "Oh, we've got to go." He said, "But we've got to buy tickets for more than one night." Like, why? He said, "Well, you never know what he's going to be like." So anyway, we went one night.
True artist.
That's enough of that. Gone.
A true artist, eh?
Then the next night he played 2 hours. He was fantastic, But it's funny, it's hilarious.
So the Irish Bob Dylan with red hair.
Yeah, you've got to buy 2 nights because you might be crap on one night, or he might decide to throw it, hissy fit, or just go. We'll leave. It's like, yeah. No,
wow.
I think that that you can question all sorts of things in that. Sure. We did think it was quite funny though, because you got to buy two nights because you might be rubbish on one night. And I've seen him a couple of times since then as well. Whenever I've seen him, as I said, the one night he was obviously off it, but the 2 later times I've seen him comparatively recently, and he was still. With a sort of 5-piece band or whatever,
wow.
Playing saxophone and a bit of guitar and stuff. He was fantastic, even when I saw him 5 or 6 years ago when I last saw him. Beautiful, I love that sort of stuff.
The Blowing Your Mind came out 67, which is a pretty average album, overproduced, but it had the song Brown Eyed Girl, which I would never want to hear again, ever, please.
No, thank you.
Never want to play it again.
Sick of that song, can't stand it.
Yeah.
Oh. But the golden period, sorry?
That and that Pink Floyd song.
Which one? Arnold Lane?
No.
Money?
I don't want to hear.
What, Wish You Were Here? Comfortably Numb?
Yeah, Wish You Were Here. I don't want to hear that again.
Oh, God. Don't come
the only Pink Floyd
to
song
one of my
I like
gigs.
is Shine On You Crazy Diamond. That's the only decent Pink Floyd song ever. But...
just putting it out there, right? There's only one decent. Carl, behave yourself, please.
but so the golden period.
You just hurled the whole of Dark Side of the Moon into the bin. That can't happen.
I still haven't tried acid yet, so maybe there's a chance. So Astral Week 68, right?
Yeah.
Moondance 1970. Which forget about the song Moondance, which is great. The whole album is just a masterpiece. His band in the street choir, Tupelo Honey, St. Dominic's Preview, just unbelievable. But what I liked about the album is one of the particular albums is the I think his band Tupelo Honey had a beautiful gatefold where you open it up and it's him with this beautiful woman and a horse. That must have been his wife.
That's right, yeah.
And he did. I think he did the same thing as Neil Young and John Mayall, which we talked about on a previous show. There, Simon. I'd like to teach you something. He went to California. All those, they were recorded on Warner Brothers, all those classic albums. So there must have been a real musical, happy, because he got into that kind of happy singer-songwriter folk rock sound. The blues is gone
yeah.
at that particular stage. So he set up shop, like a lot of them, in California. And obviously he went back and paid homage to Ireland with Vida and Fleece.
Okay, well, I'm going to make a bit of a confession here. The first time I consciously heard Van Morrison, obviously Brown Eyed Girl, that was on the radio. So we're not including that song, because that's always on the background. But I remember I was probably about 17 or 18, and I first heard, and it stoned me to my soul. And that song just
wow,
off Moondance,
and it stoned me just like Jelly Roll.
Oh my gosh! When I heard that song, it just I was on another planet, man.
That's awesome. Yeah, his musical arrangements were incredible. He had a very good backing band. All once again going back to the Charlie Watts and the Ginger Bakers.
Did he pick his band?
Jazz influenced. Very
he
jazzy.
Picked his band?
I'm not sure. I'm not a big nut like my uncle.
Okay.
But I know that his band was very good, obviously.
Well, they had a band leader, and they were all jazzers and stuff for Astral Weeks, at least. Recorded in 3 sessions. It's kind of just like going to turn up, and they just played a lot of it improvised, a lot of it just
really
put together. With him live in the studio, and him in a separate booth, singing.
He signed to this new bloody label, Warner Brothers, and there's no hit song. He comes out with an acoustic jazz on the back of Brown Eyed Girl and Gloria. Like, what the hell are you doing?
And that tells you everything you need to know about Van Morrison in one sentence.
He's a true artist.
Record with Brown Eyed Girl, so I'm going to do a jazz record with you, which I think is wonderful. But Kubrick though doesn't like Moondance. No, I know what you mean.
I'll tell you what,
it's great.
It's been thrashed.
It's a good album.
Moondance has been thrashed.
Oh yeah, but the album is good.
Great record.
Simon, I became an instant Van Morrison fan when I saw him in concert. I said I was at the front row.
Where did you?
Don't play Brown Eyed Girl. He does this.
Don't worry, I'm not gonna. Don't, whatever you do. Carl's the one bloke in the audience going, whatever you do not play.
And all these teen girls were crying.
Did he do a 2-hour session on the grounds that there was one person in the audience who agreed with him about that?
I tell you what, though, yeah. Sorry, you go.
But the amazing thing about Astral Weeks is 2 8-hour sessions to record it, and then 2 further overdubbing sessions, basically.
Why would he overdub?
Well, I did maybe some other instruments, just some bits and bobs.
Pretty a stripped down band, eh? Madam George.
Yeah, Madam George and all of that. But you see, they all had strong backgrounds, and one of the guys who worked with Charlie Mingus and the Modern Jazz Quartet and things. So,
oh wow! Wow.
So they're very, very up with being able to improvise, and as you say, that jazzy kind of improvisation thing. It's Cypress Avenue, Madam George, and beside you, we're all recording the same 8-hour session. Just amazing, really.
I just had an epiphany now. So these bands start out obviously blues, R&B, but the keyboard players are quite jazzy. So the keyboard players are the unsung heroes because Johnny Johnson, there's another guy called Jay McShane. You would have heard of Jay McShane? Phenomenal keyboards player who had a jazz background. Johnny Johnson, obviously quite jazzy. Because they had that bootleg period, the bootleg liquor period in the 30s with who was the big fat guy? Joe Turner, the Kansas City
Joe
sound.
Turner.
Yeah. So here we are, Van Morrison doing the R&B blues, which we all like and love, and obviously a bit of a rock sound with Gloria. But they handpicked these jazz guys. So obviously the jazz guys are the guys that have that space in between the notes that gives Van the freedom to sing. The beautiful rhythm sections. So yeah, I'm just making this connection. Obviously, these keyboard players are somewhat the geniuses in the band, because how many Van Morrison songs or albums are known for a guitar solo? I can't think of one.
None.
No, they're very much ensemble things, aren't they? And very much, Van play a bit of saxophone stuff. But you're right, all those they are ensemble jazz jams more than they are, as you say. Well, it goes back to this that thing we were talking about last week about Eric Clapton. That Yardbirds album features Eric Clapton, which must be the first time an album's ever said featuring a guitar player. But Van was like, Van just, he's the singer, but obviously played a bit of saxophone, but not the great whiz kid on a instrument like a guitar. So they're very much band things, put together, jammed, and and then I think the overdubbing sessions for Astral Weeks was basically they just did quite a lot of editing. They sort of edited stuff out, chopped things out, and kind of. See, I'm Cooper Clever. I'm with you on that. When I was 19, I didn't really get Steely Dan at all, and now I'm 150. I love Steely Dan. I think they're a fantastic band, But it did, there were certain bands I just didn't get in the 70s. Steely Dan was one of them. 10cc.
I didn't either, but apparently one of their albums called
Aja.
Is an audiophile masterpiece.
Yeah. So what they did there is the Donald Fagen and the other guy, the guitar player, they sacked the rest of they sacked the band and they just continued the name themselves. And what made that album especially very good, mate, is that they got, again, notice a theme here, jazz musicians in. They got guys in that could read music.
Larry Carlton and people like that, didn't they?
Yeah, so they'd get 3 guys in to do the guitar solo and pick one, and they'd get another guy to come in and do the drum solo, and then they'd get another guy to come in and play bass. So they'd have a variety of different guys playing, the riffs or the songs, and then they would pick the cut that they liked. So you're right. You're listening to a album by very technical guys, produced and directed by very technical guys, and we're all blues musicians here, aren't we? But we don't have a problem against anybody wanting to be super technical.
Well, but it's that less is more approach though, because forget about John Coltrane and that acid bebop jazz. Some of the greatest jazz is just on the one.
Oh, mate, Kind of Blue, just about, Miles Davis's famous record is basically just recorded in one day.
Yeah. Jam.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What do you think of
Kind
of Blue, Andrew? Do you like that album? Do you like that music?
What's that?
Kind of Blue.
Kind of Blue. Do you like it?
It's phenomenal. It's a master.
Okay. You're not a fan, Carl?
No, one of my biggest regrets is I had a white label promo. I sold it on hard times. I'll probably never get one again. Probably worth about $1,500.
Yeah, I love Miles Davis's. But what I was going to say is one of the interesting about that strikes me is that in those days, in the late 60s, early 70s, it's all about breaking down, no musical barriers. Miles Davis was moving into rock, all those other jazz musicians. There was no kind of, oh, that's rock and we don't do that. It was like moving into the rock territory moving into jazz, and in a sense that kind of realigning the jazz and blues, lines and bringing them into the rock thing. And I think that's really interesting. That the Steely Dan, Van Morrison, that's what they did. All those technical guys, they brought them in, and played on all those records. And so, as I say, with Miles Davis, doing that kind of jazz rock stuff, and obviously ECM and all of those guys doing, Larry Carlton and Pat Metheny and
Absolutely.
Jaco Pastorius and all those guys, who were, basically operating in a rock arena but playing, jazz rock.
Well, I mean,
and then rock musicians taking advantage of that, and those much more technical players to, as Andrew said, to bring them. Just me. Oh no, they're coming back.
What's happened?
It could be me. I don't know. There's lots of spinning around. I don't know if it's me or whether it's you guys, or whether Andrew's fallen off the cliff.
I can't see Andrew. I can see you.
Yeah, I can only see
me.
me? I can't see you. It's only...
Who can you see, Simon?
Well, unfucking believe it.
Oh, hello. Coming back.
Yeah, just a fucking
There we are.
joke. Sorry about that.
What happened?
Right. Did you? I don't know. Did your internet connection crash, Andrew?
Yeah, unfucking believable. So, yeah, and so we'll just see what happens. If it crashes again, we'll just, yeah,
No worries.
we'll just end it. So,
Yeah.
So we're basically, though, both you guys, and I think we all came up with pretty much the same conclusion that the blues R&B background, great singer, but Jazz ended up getting a hot jazz band, American-based jazz players in California, didn't he? That's what. Well,
Yeah.
Astral Weeks was recorded in New York, but then he went to California. I'm led to believe.
Yeah. It's it's fascinating that, as I say, that kind of the converging of jazz and rock and kind of thing, with Miles Davis leading the way, but all those other jazz guys.
And Cream is, people don't realise this, but they were
jazzers,
a blues fusion jazz band, which had a baby called Improv Rock.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker definitely. It's kind of relaxing. Can I just read you because I think this is so good. This shows where Van Morrison is. The first two lines of the Astral Weeks, or the first song on Astral Weeks. It says, "If I ventured into the slipstream between the viaducts of your dream, where immobile steel rims crack and the ditches in the back roads stop," which is that's up there with Dylan. That is, that's
Wow.
right up there. That's amazing. Somebody in there. I guess he's in his late 20s.
He's just this untapped reservoir of amazing talent and ability. Just on a whim, he can just record an album every year.
Can I ask you guys a question? I'm going to sort of put it down to the fact that we need to find a genesis of where guys were getting their influence of jazz from into rock and roll that came from a blues background. So I kind of discovered by accident East West by the Paul Butterfield blues band. Apparently that was heavily influenced by John Coltrane's Love Supreme. So some of the chordal tones and on that album are heavily influenced by jazz. Now that album was recorded in 66, 67, Simon and Cale. So what is it that these guys like Paul Butterfield and Bloomfield and the guy that we're talking about, the Irish guy, what's his name? Van Morrison. What is it that they were looking for in jazz, do you think?
Well, I think it's part of that musical thing of, Cream were doing it. It's part of that stretching out. It's learning about this. I've got an electric guitar. I've got whole new vistas of sound and indeed playing. Therefore, and of course the drugs. Let's not forget the drugs, as Carl was alluding to earlier with Pink Floyd. That the drugs make those kind of long hypnotic kind of great that everybody started doing in the late 60s. I think that that improvisation, that improvised stuff comes from jazz, and all those guys, they're Van Morrison particularly just discussed it. They all were listening to that. I mean, it would have been on the radio, would have been, they would have been checking it out. Obviously Coltrane and Davis and all those guys were making music in the 50s. And, so it becomes part of your influence, doesn't it? I mean, the Byrds, they did, was it 8 Miles High? The solo on 8 Miles High is a kind of, John Coltrane inspired kind of ragga. So, these things are permeating into rock music from, the early 60s. People are, because the musical world is not that big in the early 60s, and those things,
Yeah.
you know, and
I
as
think
we
you've
know,
hit the nail on the
jazz
head
and
there. I think they
blues,
certainly
jazz
wanted
and
to
blues
get
are like that, aren't
some
they?
seriousness. They wanted to get, you know, to get away from the three chords drone that was happening at that time. No disrespect to what the blues foundation is, but you know, these guys obviously were hearing things in themselves as they're growing as musicians, and so probably, you know, one of the best ways for them to develop that is to go to the jazzes. You know, look at the guy that started Motown. You know, his house band they were all jazz musicians. You know.
Yes, completely. You know, and I think, you know, that Van Morrison particularly had, you know, his father had that massive record collection with people like Mahalia Jackson in it. It had, you know, Charlie Parker in it and stuff like that. You know, so you know, had the folk music, and so, you know, you're exposed to those things very young. If you're exposed to those things very young, you know, they seep into your consciousness.
And they were trained musicians. Most jazzers are trained musicians.
Trained musicians.
They can read music. That was one of the great things too that a lot of these guys like. You know, that they can just sit there, give them the music. We were talking before I went off air. You know, Steely Dan, that was one of the great things that they liked about getting these trained musicians in. They could give them the music and they'd play it. They wouldn't have to sit there for half the day or 2 weeks, Simon, in a basement in Nellcote, recording 3 songs or learning 3 songs.
No, indeed not. And I think you know, there he is.
There he is. Okay.
We've got a great view of your ceiling, Carl.
Thanks. I'm charging the phone because it takes the juice out. What you find is the blues. Andrew brought up a good point about the 3 chords. So what you find in the blues is very structural, regimented. It teaches you discipline. It teaches you the fundamentals. Like going to the gym and just doing compound movements only. Compound movements are basic exercises which give you the fundamentals to get big.
Never been to a gym in my life. I take you at your word.
Don't need that to start now. Yes.
So what the blues has, which people find boring, but it gives everybody a start, a stop, and go back to the start again, was the turnaround, the 5th.
Yeah.
Jazz doesn't have the 5th. So with jazz, it's all on the 1, and then you just branch out and soar, and you express, and you just go, you just fly high to the sky. I think Simon mentioned something about possibly pharmaceuticals involved. You know. So with R&B and then James Brown with the funk, everything was on the 1. But in order for them to make the song a bit more exciting, they would introduce what's called the bridge, which was just a random chord out of nowhere.
Take it to the bridge.
Correct? You heard that?
Yes.
And Led Zeppelin basically said thank you to James Brown with the crunge on Houses of the Holy.
Yeah.
So you know about all that, right? So
what you find, maybe people in the chat don't know. So tell us.
I'm just all I'm saying is that the blues 3 chords, jazz 1 chord.
Yes.
R&B would be possibly 2 chords. Funk was 1, but the bridge. So the bridge was just a you'd be going on in this direction, and you stop, and you go in another direction.
For a bit.
It's hard to describe.
We know exactly what you're saying because we've all listened to. Yeah, we know exactly what you're saying. Carry on. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So when Robert Plant was saying "Take Me to the Bridge," it was a testimony to James Brown because James Brown, the whole band would be so tight they would get fined if they missed a beat, but they couldn't be on the 1 all the time because it gets boring. So, and a lot of that came from Bob Dylan poetry, spoken word too, on the 1, like a poetic song.
Beat poetry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then they obviously go to the, not 1-4-5, 1 chord to maybe whatever's in the sequence, a 3 or a 7, or I'm not sure.
Well, you had the Beatles even being influenced by that. You know, Rain, for example, just being in G, and Tomorrow Never Knows. You know, that drone chord. That been very influential.
Well, you mentioned the Beatles. You actually, in my mind, I was listening to it yesterday. Things we said today, the whole thing was in minor, and then the bridge was major.
fantastic. They just epitomize that key change, and they'll do that key change suddenly.
Yeah. Mid whatever. Yeah.
And Van Morrison, he probably would have done a lot of that if you listened to his. I don't know how to play any of his songs. He's just too far advanced for me.
I can't
It
play.
wouldn't surprise me if he did minor and majors all in one song.
Well, I think you'll find that quite a lot of his songs have not, don't have thousands of chords in them, don't have thousands of really difficult chords in them. I think some of them are quite sort of blues based, but obviously employing jazz musicians, to play the blues, you get a different thing going on. Much more improvised, much more, sevenths, ninths, 11ths, and all sorts of other stuff going on. But actually, the basis of them is not that difficult, and I think that the basis of improvisation, is that if you have massively complicated things, it's quite difficult to improvise over. Whereas if you've got, 3 or 4 chords and their basis, even if you kind of, play the 3 or 4 chords, then take the 3 or 4 chords out, so you're just left with a bit, that's not so difficult to improvise around and construct songs around. Because let's be fair, you've got to construct a song, don't you? Construct a beginning, a middle, and an end, maybe a chorus and stuff.
Absolutely.
That
Bring it
they
all back.
still have a structure. There's still got to be a structure there for doing it. And
because even though we talk about jazz being on the one and soaring, they would still have to have some kind of turnaround chord to bring it all back.
Sure.
Yeah, and you've got to have a beginning, a middle, and an end to kind of and jazz musicians will be able to and you can't help, I can't get off kind of thing, on the roundabout of hell where you can't get off because you can't find a way of doing it. But so I think that it's inevitable that that those guys, they that's why they've got jazz musicians in. It's an expansion of musical taste, it's an expansion of musical vocabulary, there's an expansion of musical genres into other genres. Instead of them being quite tight and sort of on their own, they start enveloping, the circles overlap, don't they? Begin to overlap,
and you'd have 2 different types of audiences. If you had, for example, Chuck Berry audience, everybody be out of their seats dancing to 3 chords and major chords. If you had an Astral Weeks audience, they'd be sitting down, probably half-baked, eating a muffin, coffee, whiskey, and just listening.
Yeah. Although
half the audience would be very much into the music, and the other half would be pseudo-intellectuals.
Or intellectuals. But I also think that then that we've said on here before, that the amazing thing about those, I've seen, you watch those Led Zeppelin concerts from the 60s, everybody's sitting down, entertaining. Wow. There's not a whole, it's not kind of, Wembley, stadium kind of rocking and, what's that? Bring it back a bit. It's focusing on you, Andrew, not the screen. There we are. Chasing
Train. Yeah, that's the documentary that you need to see on Netflix.
John Coltrane.
But anyway, you guys carry on. So I wasn't changing the subject. Sorry.
No, so I think that the cultural, the zeitgeist of the times is really important in the development. And those guys were all developing. We've seen it all the way through the 60s. The Beatles started off with 3 chords, and then they were 4, and then they were 5, and then they were ninths, and then it was, different things came in, and every other group's doing that too, coming from other.
I was following the chord progression to "Love Me Do." It's just G and C.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it's pretty. All that can be quite simple, and yet, then you start moving through their canon a bit more, and they start to become more complicated. There's
when
more
you
than
say
3 chords.
When you say just, what you have to also remember too, my friend, and it's we can't forget this. It's the harmonies of their vocals as well, which makes a song. So while you're a guitar player and you've got the chords of D and G, don't forget you got the harmonies of McCartney and Lennon being one key above the other.
Yeah. Everly Brothers-esque.
Sure.
If that's a word. 2 words.
Which
But
came
they
from
did model
bluegrass.
themselves on. They did model themselves on the
Bluegrass
Everly
at
Brothers,
church.
didn't they?
Yeah, bluegrass church.
Well, gospel and yeah, absolutely, all those, But as you can see, people are bringing those different, disparate influences in and going, yeah, we can use that in a different context. You've got the Everly Brothers doing a sort of rock and roll thing, but then you've got the Beatles doing not quite a rock and roll thing, but doing that close harmony singing stuff. It gives you a bit more depth, a bit more of interest, doesn't it? The two things.
And it goes back to our first discussion about these R&B bands where the keyboard is the center point and there's no actual guitar hero or guitar god or guitar solo. It would go, a lot of that gospel and those harmonies would go back to churches and British hymns, right? You've got a falsetto voice and a baritone guy, right? And doing, is that right? Or
in what?
Yep.
And maybe a
church choir
environment or a sing along.
Yeah. Church choirs certainly. I think and obviously you've got then the harmony groups, doo-wop groups from the 50s, and you've also got in the UK you've got a tradition of folk singing as well.
Yeah.
That it feeds in. It's a bit later, I think, but they all got the feature of all those things, gospel, whatever it is. They all got harmony singing. Even if you join the school choir or the church choir or whatever, and some of those guys did. The feature of those things. You were a baritone or a tenor or a countertenor or so you have different parts to sing. And you're right. And
barbershop
church
quartet.
music, barbershops quartet, completely. From the music hall. See, but it all feeds in. All that. That. Yes, we know about the Beatles, particularly that. That Liverpool thing was built on show tunes and and the music hall as much as it was entertainment. Yes, completely. And making money off the entertainment.
What's the roots of doo-wop?
Well, I think that 4-part harmony thing. I think the 4-part harmony, is it not? Do you know what? Well, it must come from street singing, isn't it? It's kind of it's how to make the sound of a band, but just with 4 voices, i.e., no equipment, but yourself. Yeah,
Frankie Valli.
Frankie. But the bass players, the bass singers go do 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 do. So then, in effect, they are.
It's from the field, isn't it?
I know. Did you see that? You were taken back there, weren't you? In an instant by my brilliant rendition of the flamingo.
In the still of the night.
Yeah. Well, but in effect, what you are doing a band, aren't you? So you've got a bass, you've got the clicks, the drums, you've got a bass player, bass singer, and then you've got the other guy, and then the lead singer over the top. Kind of thing.
I've seen this. He was a rapper, no joke. Black guy. All he had was his voice. A quarter, which is a coin. His hands on the table, and he sounded like a whole band.
Where was that in America?
I'll send you the clip. It's amazing.
Okay.
All he's doing is he's singing. He's doing the percussion with his hand, and he gets the treble noise with the coin. and then that's just how it is. Like you mentioned, jazz. What's it called? Sorry, jazz and doo-wop. It's all expression.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But I think when it comes out of that, I think that kind of trying to emulate a band thing, but without the band, without the instruments. So you didn't need to, you could go and earn some money on the streets.
It was probably a product of having no money. It was economics.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Sure.
Street harmony, vocal harmony groups.
We've got one small little amp. We've got 4 guys who are unemployed. We've got one guy that's talented. Let's try and make as much noise as possible with what limited we have.
One guy that's talented. I like that. That's true.
Not to discredit any of the other guys, but
no, yeah,
you got to have the good-looking showman, the front guy.
oh yeah.
Yeah, to get the money in.
Who was
the money
that
in
guy?
your hat.
Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers. You know, the one guy.
Yeah.
You know, with the golden voice. So yeah, you're exactly right. You had baritone. You had some guy. I think those bands, the skiffle bands, had a T-chest bass, which is one string.
Yep.
And a bass drum, a snare, and a hi-hat. That was it.
Yeah, and a washboard quite often.
Washboard,
gives you the rhythm, yeah, which is a bit like that, isn't it? It just gives you the hi-hat thing rather than
and one string. Of course, and a lot of them had no drums, Simon, didn't they?
Yeah, well, because they had the T-chest bass, and then somebody played the washboard, which was
that was
basically
rhythm.
the drummer bit. Yeah, that was the rhythm bit, you know. So
which coincides with what we talked about earlier, which was Cajun, which is heavily accordion and washboard.
Accordion and washboard, yeah.
What's his name? The guy that gets all the credit.
Clifton Chenier.
Clifton Chenier.
See, thank you very much. There's so much rubbish in my head. It's just not true, is it? I can produce Clifton Chenier, no problems. Look at that.
Yeah.
Terrible. But I think the other thing to note about Van Morrison is that he was in a skiffle band when he was in his teens. He started off being in a skiffle band. You know, I rest my case about skiffle, but that 3-chord thing, you know, is lead belly and all of that, yeah, which he would have got from his father's record collection.
It's about energy. It's about excitement. It's about using what you've got, which happens to be not much.
No, don't need much.
And trying to make a noise.
Yeah, you know, an embryonic noise, you know, and then you get a bit better. So you get a bit more, a bit better noise, if you see what I mean. You know, we get louder instruments, you can make a bit more noise. You know, and eventually then you get, you know, you go through the 3-chord stuff, and then you meet some other guys, you get to know who can play more than 3 chords, and that expands your musical horizons. And you think, well, I could do something.
That's been the age-old adage about music is these guys go from a stripped-down band to hiring a horn section and 2 keyboards and tambourine and overproduced the wall of sound.
Sure.
And then they do the full circle and come back to a strip sound.
Yeah,
good point.
See, the first two, Van Morrison had a skiffle band called the Sputniks.
The Sputniks.
The Sputniks, obviously, I was Sputnik, and then he had another one called Midnight Special. You know, which is, of course, you know, skiffle.
We all know what a midnight special is.
Easy, Tiger.
We're not talking about the one around the back fence or the one by the bike park or the bike shed. Isn't the midnight special a what's a midnight special?
Train to set you free.
Yeah. A train to set you free.
I thought it was a train.
As the Lead Valley folklore, basically, if you were in prison, a midnight special was actually the name of a train, and when the light shone in the night, I think it was the train symbolised freedom, and the train was going to pick you up.
Sure.
So yeah, freedom. Let the midnight special shine a light on me.
That's it.
Yeah.
So CCR basically. Maybe I wonder if CCR was influenced by them with Gloria, Midnight Special, all these songs. I've got a funny feeling they were.
Probably.
No shit.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Of course they were.
Amongst others, part of the British invasion.
Yeah.
Almost certainly. You know, John Fogerty almost certainly would have, because, as we said on here before, you know, that world is not a huge world, is it? You know, someone like them would have, you know, Gloria or whatever would have come across, you know, and then, you know, he would have heard it, John Fogerty, wouldn't he? He'd be going, oh yeah, they're doing something, you know, from the same sort of roots, you know, same sort of rock and roll thing. So, all right, somebody else is doing it too, kind of thing. So, you know, I think it's, you know, the world of music was a lot smaller then than it is now, and it, you know, it means that you're able to influenced by lots of things. People thinking the same as you. Post-war.
Well, let's face it. That's why Van only did 2 albums. The first album was obviously great. The second album, possibly good. It was all just mainly covers. In order for Van to stretch out, he knew that he wouldn't be able to make it confined to 3 chords. And the Rolling Stones, Andrew Luke Oldham did the biggest favour to the Stones. Hey, Keith. Hey, Mick. You do a great job of Time Is On Your Side. Little Red Rooster's a great success, but you're going to have to start writing your own songs.
Yeah.
So Van, those classic albums, I got a funny feeling they would have been all 90% Van Morrison written, with the occasional cover. So there you go.
Probably starting off more than the occasional cover, one would say, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Because you'd be, if you're playing in a hotel, then your audience expecting you probably to do some kind of quite, some blues standards and sort of things like that, but you can gradually, he played in a show band in the early 60s, Van Morrison, so he's going to Germany, so and the show band is all covers, it's all kind of covers bands, isn't
it? There was a, I think my computer's still going. There was he did a series in an Irish or a famous hall in Ireland, and he did mainly traditional songs. Simon, do you know about that one?
Celtic songs.
Yeah,
Celtic songs. Yeah,
oh, really?
Absolutely, yeah. Which is the kind of folk thing, which has been running through. Veed Fleece has a very kind of Celtic feel to it as well. The kind of the flute and the. There is a very strong undercurrent in Van Morrison of not only of jazz but also folk. Obviously Irish, Irish folk, but but yeah, absolutely. So he's been doing Irish folk stuff for years. It's one of his mainstays. That kind of that mystical stuff is is quite evocative of Irish folk music.
There was an amazing. This guy did an incredible job. You know how we got all these quarantine videos and all these memes and jokes and cartoon pictures, and some guy did a Beatles before and after. 62 young, clean shaven, 69 bearded, before and after the quarantine.
Yes.
Really good.
We're all living the Beatles in 4 weeks. Yes.
But there's a guy. And he sat down, and you think he's in a plane with blue water. And it's an amazing, did a great job. But he's put his laptop inside the washing machine. The washing machine looks like the window of a plane. And,
right. Oh, yes. It's an advert, isn't it? Or something. I have. And he looks like that's right. It looks like he's in an aeroplane, and when he pulls back, he's just he's put something in the washing machine, doesn't it? So it looks like he's looking through the porthole.
It's probably the best quarantine joke or video of them all. It's an amazing job, but it highlighted me to that song called. Have you heard of a singer called Enya, Simon?
Enya, yeah, Irish. Yeah.
She's Irish.
Orinoco Flow or something like that was a big song.
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely.
Only Time or Time something.
Well, Orinoco Flow is a international hit. But anyway,
And she did a Lord of the Rings song too, which was famous for Lord of the Rings movie. But
okay,
okay. But she's seeped into that Irish mysticism, which is a combination of traditional Irish music, folks, gypsies, Vikings, and gospel intertwined.
Yeah. See, so you're taking all your influences.
Scandinavian influence in there.
Yeah, maybe in terms of the probably more in terms of the Norse myths, the Norse gods, Odin and Thor and all of that. Probably more than the music. Viking music. I'm not sure about Viking. I don't know anything about Viking music from the
not necessarily Viking,
6th century.
But
the mythology, that seeped into, that goes along with the Tolkien Lord of the Rings thing very much so. That's
it has to be Celtic, Celtic music. Celtic, sorry. Celtics is the baseball team, basketball team.
No, football team.
Yeah,
The Boston Celtics.
Yeah, and the Boston Celtics. Yeah. But certainly Celtic. Definitely. You know, if you look at the soundtrack on Lord of the Rings, definitely. But that Orinoco flow, that's 30 years ago. So, you know, and that was top 10 kind of stuff. That was, you know, they played it religiously for about 10 years in a row, I think, Simon. And then,
if you think about that song, what's its basis? It's 3 chords.
Yeah.
Dum, 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 dum,
Yeah.
dum, dum,
And
dum,
Clannad, remember Clannad was another band.
Clannad, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Influenced
Clannad,
by
Irish
came out around that time.
Yeah, you know, and they would have taken some Van Morrison influence for sure, Clannad, you know, yeah. And before them, there was a
Bjork was completely the opposite. You know, the Icelandic singer. She was the opposite, wasn't she? Bit of a punk rocker.
She didn't remind me of Enya or any. So maybe she's done some more kind of what do you call it, new age sort of music. I think of her as being much more experimental with things. Bjork.
She was pretty cool when she came out.
The album was live at the Grand Opera House, Belfast.
Oh, when was that?
Yeah.
What year?
Famous.
1983.
83.
Oh, wow.
And before that, there's a 74. There's a live album, isn't there? Van Morrison did a live album.
Oh, it's too late to stop now.
Too late to stop now.
That's right.
Which was basically all his album. All his classic albums, all live. That 68 to 72 period.
Really?
Yeah.
They're all live albums.
He's basically a live album with a hot band of all that classic period from 68 to 72.
Wow.
Double album.
Smart.
Yeah. It's got horns, got like a big horn section. It's quite soul-y influence, Celtic soul.
Yeah.
So it's quite soul influence. It's got a lot of like those kind of horn riffs.
One year he's doing a folk album, next year he's doing a Celtic album, next year he's doing a country and western. Then he goes on a rock tour. It just flows through him, this musical.
A little bit like you mentioned it before, obviously, you know, a little bit like Bob Dylan, but certainly reminds me when you just said that of Neil Young. You know, Neil Young would just completely do something just completely off tangent. In fact, he got into trouble, didn't he, with one of his record companies. They said, "Why don't you just do an album like Neil Young?" And he said, "But I'm giving you albums." And
because one of his albums, what they call a concept album, a journey through the past.
Trans, so I'm a Neil Young nut. So Trans came out in 82, 83, and that was computer music,
computer-based stuff. Yeah,
and then Everybody's Rocking, which was like a rockabilly album, and it sort of flipped everyone because you had to remember, like Live Rust was the big album that came out, you know, that everyone was getting into.
Yeah, Rust Never Sleeps.
Then he did that bloody Landing on Water album. Oh, my God. So he's done some bad albums. Sorry, Arvin. Sorry. You know. Oh, he's not a Canadian anymore. He's a naturalized American. So.
He's not a Canadian anymore. He's an American. Yes.
So we can give him shit.
He's taken the oath. He's taken the oath of allegiance to.
Oh, glory!
Kubrick's asking you guys a question. Have you heard of a band called Band Hub?
A thing called Band Hub.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't heard of it.
No, I've not particularly, but
I'll check it out.
No, okay. Yeah. The way of musicians getting together, by the look of it, on the virtually getting together.
Yeah, I don't know what that clicking is. I'm sorry. It's
I think it's isn't it Carl? For some reason he's clicking.
Is that you clicking, Carl?
Are you eating your tea?
Are you giving us a click track? Oh, that's better.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it clicking?
Yeah, there's a sort of slight weird clicking interference on it.
I'll put my headphones back in. The phone was starting to run out of juice. Unfortunately, I might have to bail out in about 5 minutes.
Oh, no, 5 minutes is good. We've been on for two hours minus me going adrift for 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
All my accessories to my iPhone are all pretty much on their last legs.
Okay, it's okay, and you can't do anything about it until lockdown finishes.
Yeah, everything's getting very shorty.
And you're getting very croaky.
Shit.
It's okay.
Yeah. You sound like you're in the 1940s, Carl. Lots of crackly static.
I swore earlier.
Walton swore, sir. Bad language in the class.
Sorry, yeah. All this.
It's okay, mate. It's okay. It's right. It's okay. It's right. Where we're going? We're going nowhere.
Got nowhere to go. Nothing else to do.
I ain't got work tomorrow.
Ain't got nowhere to go. No.
I wish I did.
The last legs. Oh, that's a lot better. That's clear. Really clear now.
Ain't got work till Thursday.
The click's gone.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. So I've got some dud headphones and some average headphones, but unfortunately, I can't charge the phone while I've got the headphones in. So
no, that's the problem with the bloody iPhones, because you've only got the one hole, haven't you?
Yeah. No, it was Steve Jobs purposely made iPhones sell billions and squillions, not off the phone, but like printer ink with printers, off the accessories. They patented, customized everything. So you can't go to the warehouse or a store to buy some headphones. You've got to buy iPhone headphones, Steve.
That's right. Yeah.
Wanker.
Yeah. And now, as you said, it got no
Simon, are you
socket.
Android or Apple?
Well, technically, there's my Samsung phone.
iPhone?
And there's my work iPhone.
Okay, so he's both. He's 50-50.
Oh, wow.
To be honest, okay. I'm an Android bloke, not an Apple bloke. Apple, it's one of those things where I just can't quite get my head around Apple. It just does not compute with me. And it's me. I completely understand that it's me, not the thing. But, for instance, if you spell a word wrong, the difficulty I have trying to get the cursor in the middle of a word to change a letter or something I type wrong, it just defeats me. And then it just drives me bananas because it's bloody annoying that I can't do it, and then I get cross with it. So.
Is that iPhone or Android?
iPhone. My Samsung is much better for that than you can just rest your finger on the thing and it'll put the cursor in the middle of a word, no problems at all. It's operator error. I'm using my iPad now to do this, which is fine. The iPad is.
What iPhone did from day one, and it just shows you, I think, not the superficiality of human nature, but shows you how easily led we are. A bit like Nike Jordans, Coca-Cola and Levi's, a tremendous amount of money back into marketing.
Yeah.
It
becomes a fashion thing, doesn't it?
It
becomes much, an iconic thing rather than it's. Whereas,
functionality.
Because I've worked in IT for 30 years. You quickly get past the the sort of the trendy fashion bit and get into. Can I make this work so that it works for me, kind of thing? And
my sister wanted an iMac, and then I did some research. That twice the price of other laptops.
Yeah, Dodge, yeah, like way overpriced. Same Intel chips that they use now, and they're like way more expensive. And they're all built in China. Let's face facts, kids.
It's a shame. Yeah, I saw a horrible joke. It was a redneck joke about, this Wuhan virus, that's interesting. It's the only thing that's come out of China that lasts more than 2 weeks.
Oh, actually, I can think of something else. Coronavirus.
That was
Just another virus,
Yeah.
Andrew.
That was the joke. That was the joke.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah. Wuhan.
Yeah.
The Wuhan flu.
So I am not particularly, I mean, the other thing I'm using on here is my, which I really like, this Chromebook. I've got a Chromebook, which is just, which I really like. I like this a lot. It's, I find it really good.
I was very fortunate.
And that was
about
£200.
2.5 years ago, because I knew some people in America, and the IBM laptop,
the Lenovo.
Look, you're right, Simon. He said, Carl, he says, power it up, push the button, it just fired up within a second. Still to this day, it fires up in a split second. Lenovo, basically, China bought the IBM patent and all the plans and whatever. But to this day, it's probably the best laptop I've ever owned. It's unbelievable.
My works laptop is a Lenovo T410, and it's 9 years old.
What do you think of it?
Well, it's absolutely fine. Do you know what? Because it's a work thing, so it's a slightly different. So, for instance, it has a tied down operating system, so I can't do anything, which is fine. I didn't realise
Lenovo's been around for that long.
Yeah. Mine's 9 years old. I had it 9 years ago, and it's still absolutely
IBM,
fine.
IBM, but Chinese.
Yeah, IBM, but Chinese. But
wow.
Yeah. So just after I saw it, and do you know what? It's fine. It's worked every single day of the 9 years I've had it. You boot it up. It doesn't take that long. It takes a bit of time to boot up, but mine doesn't take very long to boot up. It's fine. I can work. I've done all my work on it. It's absolutely fantastic, and it all still works. And it's kind of, I think anything that's 9 years old that gets a beating that I give it every day, 5 days a week,
amazing. That's
8 hours a day.
I had an HP. I had a Dell.
One of those before
Dell was terrible. I had HP subsidiary, which was their generic brand. I forgot what it was called. And I had a Sony Vaio, which was amazing, unbelievable.
Yeah,
but
they were really good, weren't they, Vaios?
They stopped. But the Lenovo, I'm very happy about.
Oh wow! How long have you had it for, Carl?
Oh, to this day, it works like brand new.
How long have you had it for?
2.5 years.
Oh wow!
The guy that I bought it off worked at Noel Lee Ming, and he said, Carl, listen, I hate my job. I'm a tech nerd. I love death metal. I hate God, but I'm going to tell you about this computer. It's called Lenovo, and you'd be crazy not to buy it.
Wow!
That's cool.
See this, Andrew. This is a Toshiba, right? Laptop, yeah. But it's from about 1995.
Yep, I remember them. Is that 4 megabytes?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but it did have a color screen, but it was about 6 inches square. But the funny bit is, I know somebody at work. The reason I took a photograph of it is because actually this is pre-90. Yeah, the reason because you won't be able to don't understand this, but it says property of the NRA. By the way, that's not the National Rifle Association. This is the National Rivers Authority, which disbanded in 1995. So it's
holy shit.
Somebody I know at work found it under their daughter's bed and brought it into work about 6 months ago to hand it in. And I thought, bloody hell, I probably rolled that laptop out 25 years ago, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Well, you
it's
bring up a good point. Because I had a Toshiba, and it was a great laptop, but very, very basic.
Yeah.
Just basic. Well, so I'm not into basic, sorry.
But you can tell how old it is. Look, what's that?
Yeah. Floppy disk. Is that the 4-inch floppy disk?
Floppy
3 1/4 inch?
3 1/4.
Is that before they introduced Viagra?
Yes, before they introduced the wheel. To be honest.
So the Viagra came out late 90s. What was that, mid-90s?
Viagra? I don't know
Floppy
what.
disk.
I couldn't have a clue. I don't know anything about that.
Hard drives right before that.
How many jokes have been around about laptops with RAM and hard drives and floppy disks?
Yeah. When I started working in computing in 1988, here we go, because I'm bloody old.
Because
I
who
can
the
remember
hell wants a virus or a bug? Sexually transmitted
before
computers.
Yeah. When I first started in 1988, we had a here we go. We had a IBM XT computer,
Yeah,
right?
I
So it had a hard drive. It had a 20 megabyte hard drive. 20 megabyte.
Yep. And the 5-inch floppy disk.
Yeah, two 5 1/4. Well, one 5 1/4 floppy disk drive. Yeah. What you used to do is you have one for the operating system and one for your application. So you put the operating system in and turn it on, and then it would come up. And then you put your word processing disk in, and then it would run it up. Then you could take the word processing disk out and then put another one in to save your work cost.
My first computer, Simon, was a XT in 1992. I got that from a friend and it had WordPerfect on it. We were doing some political work, so yeah, WordPerfect 5.1, and it was fantastic. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
It did everything that I needed to do. I could write documents. It had a spell checker.
Wow.
Thesaurus. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But there was no emails back then. It was just
no. I had email. I was on CompuServe, so I was emailing.
You would have done. 92. Yeah. I probably. That's about the sort of time I was getting my first BT internet.
I thought it would have been just data entry only.
No. I was so 91, 92, 93 was when I was using an XT and I was emailing. I had a CompuServe account.
Yeah.
Email address.
Me too. Yeah. Simon.t.williams@btinternet.com was my original email address. Fantastic! Wow. Look at that.
But I remember being amazed when I sent an email to a friend that I hadn't met to New York, and he replied back making some editorial adjustments to a document that I'd sent him, and I remember thinking, "Wow, this was great."
Look at that.
Yeah.
We've
got to give credit to Mick and Keith back in '67 with that song 2000 Man.
Okay.
The lyrics.
Yes.
The lyrics of 2000 Man, Random Computer.
Yes.
Was it? No, talk about random computer. Well, I see.
Yeah.
Prescient. I think is the word.
Listen to the song. He's talking about a frustrated family guy who's got a computer.
Yeah, and what are people doing now? You go for a drive when you're free from lockdown, and you'll see people. Mate, I'm fascinated by it. I see people walking in the park when I'm walking my dog, families, and they're all on their phone.
It's disgusting.
And here we go. Yeah, God, yeah. So I found the Kiss version.
Oh yeah, that's okay. It's the same song.
That's the most famous version as far as. All the people that don't know about
Dynasty.
The album.
It was on Dynasty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because Kim Simmons, was it Kim Simmons?
Gene.
No. Kim.
Gene Simmons.
Who's the guitar player?
Ace Frehley.
Paul Stanley.
Sorry. Yeah, Ace Frehley was a big Keith fan.
Yeah.
So he picked that song for the band.
Yep.
I think this is look at that. See, I know that Ace Frehley and Paul Stanley. It's like I'm going to go stand in the corner. Hacks had a terrible effect on me. I now know the name of Kiss guitarists without even thinking about it.
Well, actually, there was a picture of on Instagram of Ace Frehley today. Sorry, Paul.
His 100-year-old dad. Wasn't it?
You beat me to it, Simon. I was supposed to share.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm sorry. Apologies. Sorry. Idiot.
That's 100-year-old dad. Yeah, I saw that.
And he looks great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I thought Simon. I thought Paul was looking old, but his dad looks fine.
So he must.
God.
Amazing, eh?
So what, Andrew? What are you going to say? Oh, he's frozen. He's frozen again. Carl's in the dark. Oh no, there you are.
Oh, it's probably time we wrap it up, guys. Computers.
Just getting going, aren't we? Just warming up.
Be what, C8?
Say that again, Carl. Andrew.
I think he's frozen in time.
He has frozen. No, look, now we've got the spinning wheel of doom. Will he come back? These are another question.
I'll have to close out, guys. Hey, Simon, it's good to talk to you.
And you take care of yourself. And he's gone.